soul. You can't take my soul. You might take my freedom, but you can't take my soul. You can't take my soul.
Whether it's emancipation or assassination, no, I fought for emancipation. My intentions were pure, you can debate it, but no, never ever shook hands with Satan. My plans are amazing, I thank and praise them. When I die, don't cry, just congratulations. A million more feet will stamp the pavement with plans for changes, no exaggeration.
Hello guys, this is Eddy from IReapZz TV, and today I'm bringing you episode 2 of Real Snipe, which is going to be the complete sniping guide for Call of Duty Black Ops, and hopefully it will teach you everything there is to know about sniping. And I know when people talk about hardscoping, this is what you normally see: noobs that just aim in their scopes, walk around with their scopes held up, but this is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about how to hardscope like a pro. Like, if you've watched the IReapZz montages and amoodieswede, the way they hardscope is different to how you normally hardscope. It's so much quicker and so precise. That's what gives them the fame. So this is what I'm going to be teaching you in this episode. This was just a little joke for the beginning section. Just like my previous quickscope tutorial, I'm going to be breaking it down the steps to also make it easier.
IReapZz inbound.
Yes guys, now this is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about fast-paced hard scoping, which is also accurate, the quality you see in montages. And this is done in a slightly different way that you do your normal hard scope. But in this tutorial I'm going to explain the differences between the quick sort of hard scoping and the slow sort of hard scoping, and when you should do both. Okay, I think we've seen enough killing, so let me get into this tutorial. And first of all, I'm just going to be breaking it down and identifying what is which. Okay, so the first part of the breakdown is actually just identifying what is what, and I've called this a pop scope because I don't really know what name it has. I don't think it even has a name, so I'm just calling it a pop scope because it resembles a pop. So there's differences. There's the pop scope, what you saw first, and there's the hard scope, which is now. The hard scope is when it looks more fluid, less rigid than a pop scope. A pop scope looks rigid, but a pop scope is better for close range, and for far range it's better to use a hard scope or the standard hard scope. So the timing. In quickscoping, if you were talking about timing, it would be the time in which it takes you to zoom in. However, in hardscoping, is the time in which you hold your breath. So in a pop scope, the main difference that separates it from a hardscope is that you zoom in first, then you would wait a little bit before holding your breath and then aiming and then shooting. So instead of holding your breath while you're zooming in, you would actually zoom in first, then hold your breath, then aim before you shoot. So when you zoom in, you wait for about 0.3 seconds, just a little bit, just so that the recoil or the little bounce what occurs when you zoom in disappears just before you hold your breath and aim and shoot. Just practice getting used to this. Now for the standard infamous hardscope. With this one, you just zoom in whilst you're holding your breath and then you aim and shoot. The difference between this is that when you zoom in whilst you're holding your breath, for some reason it kind of throws off your aim, so it's not very good for close range because you end up missing. It's good for far range, let's just say if someone's camping. This is also because it just takes more time than a pop scope. But sometimes if like you miss a pop scope like I did then, just do a standard hard scope. the best of both is actually the best way to become a good hardscoper. And also remember to take your time. I think this is the most important step, basically because even if you know the technique and you don't practice properly, you just won't get it. When you're hardscoping like this, it's actually good not to hold your breath before you see the person, because when you hold your breath before you see the person, sometimes you run out of breath just as you see the person, and then at the end your scope just keeps on bouncing up all over the place and then you miss. So it's just try to zoom in when you've seen the person you're aiming for. For practice, I highly recommend combat training. Just put it on 1v9 team deathmatch and then just try and kill all the people. It should be easy, but the point is to learn before you go into a real game. Once you've got the hang of it, it should just be like dot to dot. When you zoom in, it's like you're a robot. You're just aiming the people, smack bang on target and shooting without even realizing it. And that's what you're aiming to do. So with the pop scope, although like when you learn it, you should learn it in the steps I've given. Most of the time when you're doing it, you won't even realise you're doing it. That's what you want it to become. In this particular clip, I just did both the pop scopes and the normal hard scopes, and with that I was able to destroy the computers. I didn't even upload, I didn't even like show the whole game here because it would have taken too long, but I annihilated them basically, because once you learn how to pop scope and hard scope at the right situations, then at the end they can't really get you, because when they're at far range you would hard scope them with the normal hard scope, at close range you'll pop scope them or quick scope them. However, in this game I didn't even quick scope anyone because I was just trying to prove the importance of hard scoping in the game, because most people, they want to learn a quick scope without hard scoping. And also don't rush, and here's a big mistake I was making here. I was following the people. You should never follow people in your scope. That's one example I've learned during my sniping experience of the game, because when you follow people it kind of throws you off, and then if you hit them and then it's like a hit marker, you've got to zoom out and then readjust. It's like, it's weird, trust me. The positioning of your thumb with the stick, it just feels funny after you do it. And now I'm just going to expand on a common error of hard scoping. Yes, the common error is basically when people are running past, because so many hardscopers I see when they're hardscoping, they can hardscope fine, but as soon as someone's running past them, then that's when they screw up. They end up like just following them in their scopes, and then the person might just change directions and everything. It just completely throws you off. What you should do is you should aim, you should basically just anticipate where they're going to be, aim into that spot and then shoot them with a pop scope or just a standard hard scope, just like that. Sometimes it is better to follow, but only follow people if your scope is slightly ahead of them. If you're behind and you're just trying to follow them, you're gonna fail. That was a nice no scope. So I'm just gonna do one more example of them, and then after this I'm just gonna show you some real game examples of hard scoping with the pop scopes and the hard scopes being enforced. All of the examples are from just this one clip I had. It's because my internet was lagging, so I could only have one clip. But as you can see there, I did a pop scope on one person there, and as it's theatre mode, it is kind of lagging, and there wasn't as much smoke when I was actually playing it live, but you get the point. So right here, I knew there was someone there, I pop scoped him, and he didn't really stand a chance. And I just let this clip run. This one over here was actually a drag scope, which I will be explaining in a future tutorial of real snipe, and yeah, a future tutorial. And then the last person here, I just got him with a standard hard scope. Sometimes it's just better to do a standard hard scope, but the reason why I failed was because I stayed in my scope, so it threw me off. When the person came there, I just wasn't expecting it. And over here, I gave this person a quick scope. I'll be explaining quick scopes and also future episodes. But over here, I just did a standard hard scope. There was no way I was going to pop scope him accurately at that range. And also, pop scoping is something that requires momentum, I think. Once you get one kill, it starts like a domino effect. You end up just killing so many people with one pop scope. Just the one that starts it off breeds all of the other ones. But anyway, sometimes just go for simple stuff. I did finish second in my team this time, and I did get the final kill as well, just because I wasn't really trying to show off much. Finally, an example of the mistake I was explaining. This time I did it right, and this is just a clip showing the correct way to do it, even though I did explain earlier. This is in a real game example. So as you can see, I zoomed in just a little bit ahead of the person before I shot him. Just try and enforce this in your tactics. And I know there it looks like I actually shot behind him, but it's just theatre mode lagging. So this is the end of the hard scoping tutorial, and I hope you enjoyed it. Next tutorial is quit scoping. So in the next tutorial I will be explaining how to quit scope, and I will be including just as much detail as I did in my quick scope tutorials for Modern Warfare 2. And also I will also be going into tips and tricks like 360s and some other types of shots in next episodes as well. But in the next one in particular, I'm just going to be doing quit scoping. I'll do drag scoping separately because I think it requires a whole different technique than to quit scoping. This was Eddy from Gamers TV with the second episode of the Snipe.
Oh, it's Clayton G and Eddy. Clayton and Eddy. Oh god. Oh, Clayton just took a death.